when the chaos of popular culture makes your brain hurt. You really need relief in the form of a transfusion of analysis and humor. It's time for a POPeration. Join hosts Eric and Stacey as they dissect pop culture, one bloody organ at a time. It's just what the doctor ordered.
Hello.
Hi there.
This is POPeration. I am Stacey.
I'm Eric.
And today we're talking a little bit about guilty pleasures. I don't know that this would be the last time we talk about guilty pleasures because that's such a broad kind of topic.
Yeah. But we're going to talk about our guilty pleasures in particular. And we've each chosen two.
Yep.
That we're quite frankly,
I cannot believe I'm going to say it out loud.
Embarrassed to admit
I really am.
that we actually watch these things, or in my case, watch and or consume certain properties. But we're gonna admit it to the world. We're gonna be okay with that because everyone has them, you know.
Exactly. No. I agree. Everybody has them, but not everybody tells, and that's a part of it, is that you keep it to yourself. It's one of those things that, you know, I sleep with a teddy bear still or something like that you don't tell anybody. By the way, that was not my guilty thing. I just want to throw that out.
Well, Frank's a cute guy, so...
Frank is a cute guy. So I suppose maybe I do.
Yeah.
But I don't think that that's the whole deal. You don't tell anybody about it. It's something that you do or listen to or watch or read by yourself. And it gives you pleasure, but you don't tell anybody about it.
So we're kind of defining...
Because it's embarrassing. You feel it's embarrassing.
Yeah, we're kind of defining guilty pleasure here as something you're really not supposed to like. You're not supposed to like it. That's why you're embarrassed, because admitting that you like it makes you somehow inferior or lesser.
Right. It's not cool, or it's not trendy, or maybe it is something that a younger person would do,
yes.
So you feel like you shouldn't be doing it because you're mature and you're adulting.
Or it's something that only old biddies would like to do. So you can't quite,
So either you feel like you're too old to participate or too young to participate.
Or too white or
too correct.
Or whatever it is.
Or not white enough.
There's something about that says it's not okay. So I'll go ahead and dig in with one of mine, which I'm not too guilty about, but I remember when it came out, it was just considered to be so inferior, and it's a remake. Mm-hmm. And I think at some point we might end up doing an entire show about remakes, because remakes are just a whole, why do we do it, etc. But I will kind of spill the water on one particular remake, which is Point of No Return. Mm-hmm. It's a film from the 90s that was a remake of La Femme Nikita. Mm-hmm. And La Femme Nikita was about a young street girl who was basically recruited into some government secret organization to be an assassin. And then subsequently her desire to get out of that life, despite the fact that the government...
She was blackmailed into it.
Yes, they owed her. She was basically either going to get the death penalty...
Correct.
Or she was going to have to choose this life as an assassin. Mm-hmm. So she went with the assassin bit because that seemed like an easy call.
It was a really French movie.
Seemed like an easy call. But then once she was living as an assassin, she decided she really didn't want to do that.
And she fell in love.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And isn't that, doesn't she have the ability to control her own destiny? So, interesting movie, very French, in its way.
But it was popular. It was actually very popular, critically acclaimed when it came out. La Femme Nikita was.
And an action movie. I mean, with other stuff going on, because the Europeans can't just do a straight action movie.
No. That's the whole thing. It was very French.
They have to do that thing. And I remember there's one thing that really marked the Point of No Return as different from La Femme Nikita.
You mean aside from the fact that you didn't need subtitles?
Well, the fact that I didn't have to read the movie. But I don't mind reading movies. I really don't. So that wasn't the thing. I don't either. But there was a scene where in both La Femme Nikita and Point of No Return, there's a scene where her first mission comes about. And what she's asked to do is dress as a hotel... She's delivering the room service. Oh, yeah. So she's a maid. She's a member of housekeeping. And she's asked to go to a hotel and just push a cart of food into a room that has a bunch of, you assume, people from the mob or some kind of espionage, whatever, and leave. And that's her entire job. And in the French version, she does it, she leaves, she goes back to her life, and she's like, wow, that was actually pretty easy. Of course, in the American version, just as she's leaving, in her rear view mirror, the hotel, the entire top of the hotel blows off. There's this huge explosion.
Sure.
And then we cut to Bridget Fonda's horrified face.
And this is the first time you've mentioned Bridget. Bridget was the star of that show.
Yes.
It's back when she had a career.
Yes.
Actually, not only back when she had a career, but when her career looked like she was going to possibly follow in her Aunt Jane's footsteps.
Yep.
And be like movie star,
Yeah.
legacy person.
Yeah. Maybe when the people find Richard Simmons, their next podcast can be, where's Bridget Fonda? But no, she's great, and she
was very good.
And she
did.
But so Bridget, where are you? Call us. Be on our show. But you know, there was this. It was just so American in that we couldn't let a good explosion pass us by. You know, we had to see things.
It was
blow
very,
up.
and I think to an extent, I'm going to use the word clean, put that in quotes, cleaned up for American audiences. It was not as dark. The French version was, I just remember it being very dark, even in the lighting of it. Mm-hmm. And the costuming was just really, really dark.
Yep.
And rooms were smaller. And in the American version, there were lots of rooms that were big and they had lots of windows in them. And it was brighter and sunnier and the costuming was brighter and it was
And this government
cleaner.
lair where they all went for training was kind of a bat cave. It was cool.
It was
cool. And it had a Hollywood budget is what it had.
Correct. But it also had to go with the American sensibilities.
And Bancroft was there to teach you how to be a mannered young lady. Do you remember her?
I do remember her. She was
great.
very good. And I'm trying to remember who the one in the French one was because she was a legend as well. Mm-hmm. I forget who it was now. But you say that's a guilty pleasure. I don't know if it was. I know it was slammed a bit by the critics, but I don't know. I like it too. It's like. So I don't know how guilty you should feel. Let me say, I think you should like it, but I don't know how guilty you should feel about it because I don't know if it was that bad.
Well, here's why I feel guilty about it.
It wasn't camp.
It wasn't campy. But here's why I'm ashamed because I like it better. I liked it better than La Femme Nikita because I'm a cheap American film.
Because you're #Merkin. I think that You know
and
what?
I don't mind
you know what?
movies.
You should be guilty because La Femme Nikita was better. As much, and I liked Point of No Return, and I loved Bridget Fonda. I even watched that awful movie she was in, Shag, with Phoebe Cates. I know it's pronounced Phoebe. Don't write in. But
Mrs. Kevin Kline, who I love, but let's not get down that.
But anyway, point being, I love Bridget Fonda, and I liked that movie. I enjoyed it. Saw it in the theater. But I will tell you, even though I had to read the film, as you say, La Femme Nikita was better. So yes, I think if you say that out loud in public, especially,
I should hang my head in shame.
You should. You need to mumble that. You shouldn't say it in front of a microphone.
Well, and I just did.
Yep.
And it's not that I think I can recognize that La Femme Nikita is the superior film. But I like watching Point of No Return more. And that's, so there's
it's much more familiar to an American eye. I'll give you that. But.
So the other thing on my list of guilty pleasures is that, I'm 46 years old.
Yep.
And I still read comic books. And it gets worse.
Well, see, because I'm going to say there are comic cons out there. There are, tons of people. You are not the only adult reading comic books.
No, but have you seen those people?
Yes, I've been to a Comic Con, which that's another subject of an episode at some point as well. But
you know what? And I say, have you seen those people? I have not seen those people. I've never been to a Comic Con, but there's something in my head that says, oh my God, I'm an adult man who cannot wait. And I subscribe to a couple of comics, and my iPad tells me a couple of, once every month or so, your comic book subscriptions have downloaded.
And you get all excited.
And I do, and I go home and certain Wednesday nights I tuck myself into bed and I start reading my downloadable comic books. And my very favorite title, are you ready? Okay, so not only do I read comics.
So, yeah, I got it.
Not only do I read comics, I do not read Marvel comics because I'm not even that cool. I still read the DC comic brand because those are the ones that I read as a kid. So if you're not familiar with comics, DC is Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, that whole kind of thing. Marvel is the Avengers and the X-Men, and they're considered among most comic readers just be much better in terms of quality and much cooler, but I didn't read them as a kid. I don't know as much about the mythology.
I think there are strong arguments for both sides, and I think there's strong fan bases for both DC and Marvel.
Now, I will agree that among the DC versus Marvel, the controversy there, Marvel's doing much better in the movie-making business than DC is. They're just making better movies. So I watch all the Marvel movies. And I watch superhero movies, and I'm not ashamed of that at all, because the world
That's not a good... That's... Yeah.
I really, really wish that DC was doing a better job.
Did you tell us what comic
so my favorite comic
book to?
So my very favorite title, I subscribe... Okay, so this is where being a gay man comes out a little bit. I subscribe to all the women. All the divas. So I subscribe to Wonder Woman. I get the Birds of Prey. I get Detective Comics, which is a team. Now, so it used to be the Batman and Robin thing, but now it's a team thing where Batman and Batwoman together got a bunch of Bat kids, basically, young adults who are, keeping Gotham City safe at night. And then my very favorite title is Batgirl. And they've gone back to the original Batgirl with Barbara Gordon, who is Commissioner Gordon's daughter, who also is still, to this day, a librarian by day, although she's
running out of time. She better start digitalizing her stuff.
Well, she is, because
libraries are not.
Well, as with a doctorate in library science, she's actually a computer hacker.
Oh my gosh.
So she's an expert computer hacker.
They brought her into 21st century.
And she uses that because she's also a detective, just like, Batman calls himself a detective.
The information you know about this. Okay, you should be a little guilty.
So she is a computer hacker, and you know what? Fascinating story. Batgirl could be a much deeper conversation for another day. In terms of how the Barbara Gordon character throughout history is done for people with disabilities, because for 20 years of her history, she was confined to a wheelchair after the Joker shot her. And she was the computer hacker for every superhero in the DC universe. She was like their information.
I did not know that.
Yes, and she was, while confined to a wheelchair and while being a very proud, feminist, feminist icon, her flaming red hair and her cool little glasses, in her wheelchair was at a computer keyboard, and superheroes would touch their ear and say Oracle, which was her code name. I need you to find out for me the floor plans for this fact. And she would say, downloading, here you go. And they would appear in their masks. And it was a very kind of 21st century way of going about this. And people with disabilities responded so well to that character that then when they brought her back and said she's Batgirl again, a lot of people were really upset.
So this is your rationale.
I will say, comics, for those who read them, they are they're in the 21st century, and they have a lot of... Now, Batgirl's origins, I've gone back and read because I was curious. When Batgirl first came on the scene in the 60s, I mean, she was treated terribly. It was like, oh, there's a run in my tights, save me, save me. I mean, literally, she was a superhero.
Awful. That's awful.
That was, I mean, the storylines were just dreadful.
Well, the fact that it was girl, it was Batman, but Batgirl.
Yeah, and now there's Batwoman and Batgirl, who are two different characters in the.
Okay.
But the modern day kind of Batgirl, they are adult stories. Told by adults, really written for adult sensibilities.
You've given us 5 minutes of really good rationalizations why you read comic books and subscribe to the girl comics.
To the girl comics, to Wonder Woman and Batgirl. But it is embarrassing to talk about for people who are not familiar with that universe. If you're not familiar with what's actually going on there, and the art is so much more sophisticated than it was when if you read comics in the 70s.
True, but the art has always been a big thing about comics, I'll be honest. That's always been good, spot on, even to some of the origins.
But now it's created digitally, and so what they can do with color and the way they make things look 3D and the way they can put it. I mean, there is a lot to admire.
Yeah, there is a lot. It's not just comic books.
Okay. Thank you for the schoolmarm voice. We're going to get to Stacey's guilty pleasures after the break, so I'll have the ability to mock her next.
Yay.
Here we go.
You're listening to POPeration with Eric and Stacey. Take a deep breath. This may sting a little.
Okay, so we're back, and I was thoroughly humiliated in our last segment, and now it's my turn. It could
have been worse.
It could have been much worse. I've met you. We've known each other for a little while. But Stacey, it's time for you to tell us a little bit about your guilty pleasures.
When we were talking about this, and talking about guilty pleasures, you said, like reality shows, stuff like that. And I'm like, I don't watch reality shows. I can't stand them because A, they're not reality.
No.
And quite frankly, I don't find them show.
Okay.
They've got no plot. They got no characters. They got nobody I can relate to, nobody I care about. And it's not even well written because, of course, it's these stupid people. Anyway, but there is one exception.
Which is?
And
Wait.
But let me just say, I found it by accident because the title is hysterical. And some people may have watched it. It was only on for 3 seasons, so that means like about a year and a half.
Because it was quality, I'm sure.
It was called Temptation Island. And it was...
You're kidding.
The worst reality show in that the plot, when I tell you, is awful.
I'm so shocked.
But it was
show
the
called
best.
Temptation Island
But it was the best for an audience member because it was completely guilt-free.
How so?
I felt no guilt in watching it. I don't tell people, and I didn't tell people I watched it.
So you only feel guilty when you tell people.
Yeah, no, telling people that I watched it that's embarrassing and mortifying. But watching it, I didn't feel anything for anybody on the television show.
Oh, that's what you mean by guilt-free.
So there was when people got hurt or humiliated, I didn't care. Because that's why I don't watch The Bachelor anyway, because sometimes you feel... there's some validity to that. But, so on Temptation Island, here's the plot. It's so fun. First of all, the host was Mark Wahlberg, who now, I looked him up...
Marky Mark?
No. It probably would have been a hit had he been host. No, Mark Wahlberg, who now does Antiques Roadshow.
Oh, he's also a Mark Wahlberg. Okay. I'm there.
Okay. Anyway, let me tell you the plot. It's delicious. So basically they have 3 couples, not married. Okay. 3 couples who are in theory monogamous to each other, but they aren't supposed to have any kids. And they go to this island. Thus, the island part of Temptation Island. Once they
Is Ricardo Montalban there?
No.
With a little person?
It's better.
Okay.
It's better, I'm telling you. And they're all, and when it was on, they were all heterosexual couples, so I'll throw that out as well.
Okay.
Just so then what happens is that the 3 girls of the couple and the 3 boys of the couple are separated, and they go to opposite ends of the island.
Mm-hmm.
When they get to those opposite ends, on the girls' side, there are 26 single guys.
Gotcha.
On the boys' side, there are 26 single girls.
Mm-hmm.
Now, for the singles, as they were called...
Was their goal to, get one of the marrieds in bed, or...
Yes. Okay. Well, their goal was probably to have some kind of a relationship.
To find true love, as you do on Temptation Island.
Because now the reason you said, and they would go on dates, and then at the end of each hour, it was also a game show where they could kind of the giving of the rose or whatever. Mm-hmm. Singles would be cast away. And so it would narrow down to at the end and the finale.
People would call dodged a bullet.
There were 3. Each person, there were 3 couples on each side.
Yeah.
And then at the end, the whole idea was the original couples had to decide, did they want to stay together or did they want to split up?
And presumably go off with this single.
Correct.
They met on
or they realized that they still wanted to play the field, so this was not time.
I'm a big whore, therefore I need to...
Oh my gosh, it was so wonderful. Because first of all, every single person, that's part of my problem with reality shows, is I don't like ambushes. Mm-hmm. When they, suddenly these people are in a reality show, they didn't know they were in a reality show, and I feel bad for them when, shit hits a fan, and I'm like, they didn't even know it was a show. every single person on the show knew this was a show. If you were one of the couples, you knew the idea, temptation is in the title.
Yep.
You're going to be tempted. Now, here's also a fun part. Every night, the producers of the show, the girls would get at a little campfire and the boys would get a little campfire on their separate sides of the island. And they would have a choice. The producers had videotapes and said, if you want to watch what your significant other did today, you can.
Why wouldn't you want to? Because
if you agreed to watch what they did today, they had to watch what you did today. It was magnificent. And so if
somebody behaved really well, then that would be
correct. But again, these are edited by the producers to make the guys and girls look as guilty as they possibly could.
Gotcha.
It was wonderful. And I remember one episode where this girl, she was one of the singles on the boys' side. She was a girl, and she had fallen in love with one of the guys. And he they clearly, it looked like they slept together one night. And she was devastated when he actually voted her off. And she's crying as she's winding her way down this pathway on this island, just
weeping.
Feel bad for her? I felt nothing but glee. This was wonderful. I said, this is great TV. It was awful TV. But it was one of the most fun things to ever watch. But I could never tell anyone. And now, see, it's gone. So it's not like, you can watch it anymore. But it only had 3 seasons.
So when you tell me it's the best reality show ever, I kind of have to believe you.
You have to believe me. I don't think there is out there.
Is it out there?
I don't know. I haven't looked at it.
Everything's out there.
Maybe.
I bet it's on Hulu or Netflix.
Does Mark Wahlberg from Antiques Roadshow want it to be found? I don't know.
But
there was a scandal one time.
What? Tell.
Because one of the couples had a child together. And they were not supposed to be couples who had children together. And
so they had a child before.
They had a child before. And so when in one of the interview, one of the dates she had or something came out with kids, and they got kicked off the show.
Wow.
Because they were like, you're not, that's the whole thing about this. They didn't want to tear up a family.
Because Mark Wahlberg didn't want to be a homewrecker.
He didn't want to be a homewrecker.
He just wanted to have all the trashy people and break their hearts. Okay, gotcha.
And so, anyway, so that was fun times, but that was a guilty pleasure because when it was on, I couldn't tell anybody.
No,
because it was awful. It was awful. There was nothing redeeming about it, but it was just lovely. And because I didn't care about any of them, because I'm like, you knew going in, nobody told you were really going to find true love.
Yeah. Well, I will tell you, I watched way too much reality TV a while back. I was.
What were you watching?
Well, I was in a relationship with someone who watched every Kardashian show on TV.
Oh my God.
So I watched them all. So You Think You Can Dance, which I actually really liked because those were really good dancers. So competitive reality shows are different from just the ones that are.
It's true. I'll be honest with you. Yeah. I watch The Voice.
Okay.
I watch parts of The Voice.
Yeah.
I will say that. I like the blind auditions,
good,
but yeah.
Okay, so Temptation Island, though, the best in a trashy.
And you mentioned, I think something about retired librarians or something.
Well, Batgirl, who came out of retirement.
Right. No. About guilty pleasures. About sometimes how do you define it, and sometimes you're we're talking about you were too young. You feel like maybe you're too old
to read comics.
I may be too young for my biggest comfort television show.
So it's like Prunes.
I don't ever tell. Loosens everything up. I don't tell anybody. It's going to be hard for me to say it even now. Midsummer Murders.
Okay, I don't know a thing about it.
Have you ever heard of it?
I have. I mean, I see it on my Netflix.
Your mom?
It's recommended for me, so I don't know what that says about me.
Oh, maybe because you like British things.
I think it comes up because I watch Sherlock. And I think it comes up because I watch The Crown.
It would. It's like 19 seasons. And it's murder mysteries.
Gotcha.
And it takes place in Midsummer, which I think is a county. I know I've watched like 12 seasons and still not sure.
It's spelled Midsummer.
It is spelled Midsummer. But it's
pronounced Midsummer.
Because they're British.
Okay.
And, but it's not, I don't know where it is. I don't know where Midsummer is in England. I'm guessing it's somewhere in the middle. I don't know.
Gotcha.
But I'm guessing it's somewhere in the middle because I can understand everything without subtitles.
Somewhere in the middle. Okay.
It's not near Wales to where it's like really close to Gaelic. It's like I can understand what they're saying.
And you're not near Scotland.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
So I can understand what they're saying, and it is. You always know the murderer is going to get caught, and there's rarely explosions. It's
nudity.
No.
None. Moral ambiguity.
No.
Never.
It is an old person's joy. But it makes me, if I'm stressed or, just all this 21st century, and again, it's in the 21st century, don't get me wrong, they're still making them. They're in season 19.
Okay.
I'll turn, it's like an hour and a half long, and I know the characters, the main characters.
So they're like little mini movies, actually.
They are. They're exactly like they're exactly like made for TV movies kind of thing.
Okay.
And they would be in the BBC. They'd have commercials, so that's why they're not 2 hours here.
Yeah. So how many episodes per season are we talking?
I want to say there's about 12 or 13.
Oh wow. Okay.
And again, I don't tell anybody that because it really they are the British version of Murder, She Wrote. But the leads are policemen. So it's like, okay, unlike Jessica Fletcher, who she shouldn't be tripping over murders all the time.
Yeah.
These cops, that's, the thing. So that's my big guilty pleasure. I just love it so much. It just makes me feel good and warm. And when I go to sleep, I have happy thoughts because evil has been.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because, the two of us both love old movies a lot.
Yeah.
And so here's the thing. I have watched The Sound of Music at least 20 times in my life, and I would watch it again if anyone wanted to. And it's the same, it sounds like it's the same kind of thing, except that because it's modern day, perhaps it should be edgier. It's just not.
It doesn't, again, who is its demographic? It's not necessarily me, but it's not necessarily anybody younger than me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But and you'll see, actors are in it that are, big actors are in it. It's not like Jane Seymour's been in, TV Brits have been in there. Everybody has been a guest star on it, sometimes twice.
Okay.
But again, Brits, and that's a whole other thing, is they like to work.
Although it just sounds like British Murder, She Wrote, quite honestly.
It is to an extent.
Midsommar is the Cabot Cove.
Yeah.
Of the
or maybe
British Isles.
Macmillan and Wife, except with Out with the Wife. I mean, it was their cops. Yeah. So they're supposed to be dealing with crime.
Okay.
So you're going to deal with crime. It's not, Miss Marple would be closer to Murder, She Wrote. This is not like that. But I don't tell anybody that because it does make me sound like a really old person. But it's, again, I like the fact that there is some mystery to it, but I do know I'm going to have my HEA at the end.
Okay. So when we come back, we are going to just have kind of give our final diagnosis about this whole topic.
Yeah, why are we guilty for these things?
Exactly.
Why do we feel that way?
Why do we feel that? We do because first of all we do. Let's not deny that we do.
I totally do.
But
why is that? Why So we'll talk about that when we get back.
Wondering what room you've stumbled into? Don't mind the scalpels. You're in the POPeration room with Eric and Stacey.
Okay, so we are back. We're talking about guilty pleasures. We've talked about what defines it. Eric and I have both
got something off our chest. I feel lighter. I feel good.
We have confessed to our most. I mean, it's fine. I don't know if I feel lighter.
We'll return to the pew and say 20 Hail Beyonce's.
But I mean, here's the thing. So I don't run out and I'm not. Hi, I'm Stacey. Love Temptation Island. Spend my free time watching Midsommar Murders. Yeah. I don't ever do that because.
Hi, I'm here. You want to see my comic books?
You don't do that because, and I guess that's okay. How do you finish that sentence? Why? Why do we feel? Why? Why is it that I feel guilty about that? Why don't I tell people about Midsommar Murders when it makes me so happy when I'm watching it? Why don't you tell people? Why isn't that a conversation that you might have with any number of? Well,
I tell you, when it comes to Batgirl in particular, my whole, all the comics that I subscribe to, I will say to people who I know are familiar with the form, who have read a comic book in the last 5 years.
But you will have had to have a conversation with them to find that out.
Usually they come out to me before I come out to them.
Okay.
And so then we'll have a great conversation about it. People who, and I know, I guess I'm projecting on them as far as where I am. If I had not seen a comic book since I was 11 years old, when I stopped reading comic books as a kid, I would imagine that they were roughly the same. And they were, what's interesting about comics today is there is a lot of moral ambiguity. There is a lot of adult storytelling, but I wouldn't necessarily know that. And so the idea that someone might think about me, that I'm some stunted juvenile.
Although, I mean, with the movies that are out right now, we are in this place where we are, superhero movies are the thing. They are the it girl right now. Suicide Squad, speaking of moral ambiguity, is all of these villains together fighting crime.
Which was, of course, a comic book.
Correct. That's a movie. And so before Iron Man and all of that stuff came out, you'd want to keep that to yourself. But I don't know if it's as bad now.
The superhero genre, maybe not. But when I talk about, I've said a million times, we need to make a Batgirl movie before Emma Stone ages out of the part, because she would be
she'd be wonderful.
Perfect.
But she'd almost be good at it.
She'd be perfect.
That's how I felt. I love her.
But no one so Wonder Woman is finally getting a movie.
Yes.
It's the first time that a female superhero is getting her own movie. God, I hope it's good.
Me too. It needs to be good. It needs to be good.
The previews look good, but I've heard that the set is a little, I don't know. I want it to be a good movie. But, right now, even a Batgirl movie just seems so campy. It just seems so, outside of and maybe it's just because,
are you embarrassed? Do you not talk about it because of how people might then think of you? Is that why you don't tell people what some of your hobbies are?
Yep.
I mean, is that it?
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
I guess that's my feeling. I certainly, when Temptation Island was on, I certainly didn't tell anybody because I didn't want them to think that I watched that type of thing. Because I'm judgy.
Yeah.
And I judge people who tell me that they like to watch.
Keeping Up with the Kardashians.
Yes, I am so judgy. Snap judgment. And it's very hard for somebody to come back from that after they said, I watched the Kardashians. Really? And then Khloe's the best. Shut up. I've judged you already. We're moving on.
Although somebody who had to watch the Kardashians, Khloe is the best.
She is the best, but I'm not going there now. But here's the thing. So I would not, that's why I wouldn't, because I didn't want to be judged like I was judging people. And that's with Midsummer Murders. It's also
Midsummer Murders, spelled like Midsummer. Stacey likes it.
Look it up. Google that bitch. It is the same that I don't want to be judged in that, that means that you're put in the box of old and spinstery and boring.
Here's the difference. We're starting to play like the guilt Olympics here, like who should feel guiltier.
But why is it? But my question is why?
If you're not familiar with Midsummer Murders at all, all I know is that it's British and it streams on Netflix, and it already sounds way cooler than any of, I think only if you've seen the show can you really kind of be judgy about that.
Okay. But the thing is, it's not a fast-paced, I have never seen one single solitary car chase. Not one. Mostly because they mostly ride their bikes. And literally every bike has a bell and a basket.
That's Miss Gulch.
But they're not flying. I mean, it's a slower paced, more relaxed. Yeah. Yes, we should go and figure this murder out, but let's have tea.
Let's have a small tea.
So I feel bad because I feel like, no, that's not.
Cheese.
Again, it's about being judged. It's not what the critics said because nobody liked Temptation Island. So I'm not really skewed. My opinion's not skewed by critics so much because I think
Point of No Return, it was all about the critical thing though. It was, Point of No Return for me, it was all about this inferior, stupid American remake, and I was kind of going, I liked it.
And it's easier now though than it was back in the day because I liked it as well, but I didn't yell about it because it got panned.
Yep.
Now it's easier because years have passed.
And it's nostalgia. I mean, it's this movie from
Correct.
the early 90s, and it kind of is.
And it's
I
very
harken
90s.
back to my youth. Yes.
It's very 90s.
Yes.
It's very 90s. And so, the whole thing is, I mean, if it makes you feel good and it doesn't hurt anybody else, should you feel guilty about it? I mean, why do we feel guilty about any, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't know.
And maybe the bigger question is, why do we have to talk about the things that we watch at home? Why do we have to tell anybody? Like, whose business is it?
I've never told anybody about that.
Well, you've told the whole world now.
Well,
But, it's
not a demographic.
Guilt,
the whole world.
guilt is a really useless emotion in a lot of ways.
I agree. I think guilt and regret.
And, I was raised in a Catholic household, so I actually, yes and no. I think that if you do something horrible and you feel guilty about it, and it will stop you from doing that horrible thing again, then maybe a little bit of guilt serves its purpose. But when it comes to stuff like this, to your point, when I curl up in bed with my iPad and I read the latest issue of Batgirl and it gives me a thrill, I'm not hurting anybody.
No.
And it doesn't, and I don't believe that I'm stunting my emotional or psychological growth, even though you might suspect that from me if you had never read a single issue of Batgirl written in the 21st century.
No, I don't. I think that it's about how we feel about how others feel about us.
Yeah.
And if that's important to you, then it's interesting what does become this guilty secret that you keep to yourself.
Yeah.
And I suppose, I'll be honest with you, I'm not going to put a bumper sticker and say, fan of Midsummer Murders. That's not going to be ever. I'm not going to advertise it because I know how I judge people.
Yeah.
And I just don't necessarily need there to be a theory about me before they know more information.
But part of it is that we want to talk about this stuff. I mean, I think that's the nature of art.
I would love talking to somebody else who watches Midsummer Murders, and we can sit there and discuss it and talk about it. That's why you should go to a Comic-Con.
Because
you'd meet lots of people.
I probably would, and I'd probably have a good time. And I really didn't mean to disparage, because I've never been.
No, you didn't really.
And part of it, I would be, I would need to sneak in. I would feel like, I go to gay bars in the open, but I would have to sneak into a Comic-Con under, cover of darkness so that, my peers at work wouldn't. I'd rather they, and they all do know I'm gay, but I'd rather they know that than they knew that I read comic books. But it's, and so, maybe I should, geek pride. I should just, wave the flag and go to a Comic-Con and see what that's all about. And you've been, so we're going to talk about that.
Yeah, that's another
somewhere down the road.
Yep.
So final diagnosis. Guilt is stupid.
It is.
And when I think about Game of Thrones, right?
Mm-hmm.
I love Game of Thrones.
Mm-hmm.
Love it, love it, love it.
Mm-hmm.
Every single episode, I race back to work on Monday, and there's 3 or 4 of us at work that watch Game of Thrones, and we just dissect every single scene in every episode. Mm-hmm. And if the world hated it, I just wouldn't have anybody to talk to about Game of Thrones, and that's half the fun of watching Game of Thrones, is either watching it with people or talking about it the next day.
Right.
Part of what makes me feel bad about Batgirl is that, I don't want people to know, but at the same time, I also don't have, if there's an episode, if there's a series, I call it an episode, if there's a comic book that just brings a story to its a shattering conclusion and it's awesome, I don't have anybody to talk to about that. Right. And that kind of ruins some of the fun. Yeah. Which is why guilt sucks.
Yeah, it does. It does. And I think the bottom line is that, I was really sad when Temptation Island was canceled because to me it was the most guilt-free reality show ever. I didn't feel sorry for any of them, and so I was able to enjoy it completely without getting the squiggle. So I was really sorry that it was gone, but at the same time I had no one to talk to about it because nobody watched it.
Yeah.
And but also I didn't want anyone to know that I watched it because it was awful. It was an awful show. Midsummer Murders is just, I don't want to be judged as an old fogey, but none of this is going to stop me from watching it. Yeah. It's still my comfort food for television, and it's one of those that I'm not going to advertise it, but I'm not going to stop.
Yeah.
But I think that yes, guilt is completely useless. It's completely useless.
Guilt is stupid. That's what
guilt
we
is
learned
stupid,
today.
And if it's pleasure, then it's all good. Nobody gets hurt, then it's good.
Yep. Done.
Alrighty then. On to the next time. So this was POPeration. I'm Stacey.
I'm Eric.
Till next time,
Bye-bye.
Don't forget to subscribe.
You've been listening to POPeration with Eric and Stacey. If this POPeration was successful for you, don't forget to subscribe, stat. Check out our blog and other extras at www.thepoperationroom.com. You can also follow us on social media on Facebook and at POPeration Room on Twitter. Music for POPeration is provided by PurplePlanet.com.